Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar related to allocation and what do you know or what do we know about allocation. My name is Bruno Pinguet and I'm the International Technical and Business Advisor for NEL, and through the next 55 minutes I will try to give you a good hints about allocation. Before diving in this presentation, let's go through the normal process. Some of the statements I will make today are probably forward-looking in some cases, and it could be subject to some errors from my side, and in any case, it's a responsibility of the company. It's my sole responsibility, if I can say that. I want to highlight the importance of measurement, before we go formally in this allocation process. If you have no proper measurement, you are not capable to analyze exactly what's happening in your system. So the first step is really measurement. And if you do that properly, you will be able to control and probably improve your network or your system of measurement. And it may help you, to understand and control it and improve it. Okay, it is through this process, this analytical process, that you will be able to estimate the uncertainty and reduce the business exposure that you may have in some cases, especially when you do some tieback with some other partners. This is the contents of this webinar around 5 main topics. Let's start with an introduction on the most relevant people to talk about allocation. Some facts to start. A lot of people talk about uncertainty, some others talk about allocation. Even some are developing some software, but unfortunately very often you cannot audit and see what is coming out. But this is the situation where we are. So back a bit to reality. If you want to look at the allocation, it's you need to refer to standards. Okay? And essentially you go around 3 main ones. The GUM, or if you prefer, the Guide to the Expression of Uncertainty and Measurement. This will be very important. The International Standard Organization, or the ISO, and this is related to the different techniques of measurement, and probably the 5168 will help you a lot, and the API chapters following the cases where you are with oil or with gas in terms of allocation. So it is not one standard, but multiple standards that you will need to handle, with sometimes access to a lot of documentation to refer to each flow meters that you will have in your allocation process, and you will need to customize a solution for the given application. There is not one software today which is capable to do everything. First question coming to our mind is, who is in charge to verify or control that the fiscal allocation is done properly? And for each country worldwide, it will be the same. It's a regulatory body. I give you a list here. You can see NPD, for example, for Norway, or GA for UK, ANP for Brazil, MPM if you look at Malaysia, BLM or BOEM, if we are talking about USA, and this should go for each countries. The next question is, who support the regulatory bodies that I was mentioning before? And this is the National Metrology Institute. Very often you will see the NMI. Okay? These NMI are related, all the NMIs worldwide are related to the Bureau International de Poids et Mesures in Paris. Okay? And these NMI are handling the definition and the measurement of 7 parameters, which are the seconds, the kilogram, the meter, the Kelvin, the mole, and 2 others not really associated with our business in oil and gas industry, which are the ampere and the candela. There is at least one NMI in each country. Okay, and I'm giving you here the list. You will have the National Metrology Institute of Malaysia, for example. You will have the NIST in USA. You may have INMetro if we go to Brazil. you will have the VSL if we go to the Netherlands, for example, you know, and in the case of UK, you know, it will be the business, energy, and industrial strategy to help in this domain. Next step, before to do the evaluation or the allocation, it's the traceability chain. You will see later that it's important to know the uncertainty associated to your measurement. And here I'm showing you this triangle, which is fundamental, which is exactly the same for all the countries around the world. You have on the top here the Bureau International des Poids et Mesures in Paris, and after you will have a regulatory body for each country. Here I mentioned the UK one, which is the BEIS, and you will have just below them the NMS and NMI. The NMS is the measurement, the NMS is a national measurement system. It is usually an infrastructure that ensures accuracy and the consistency of the measurement. And you will have the NMI, and the NMI is a National Measurement Institute. And this is where you will do your measurement. This is the top of the physical traceability chain. This is what I'm showing here. And what will happen after is you will have secondary calibration facilities. You may have tertiary or working facilities, you know, and each of them, when you're coming down in this triangle, start to have an uncertainty which is larger or poorer than the one on the top. So following where you will be going or with who you will be talking, they will have a knowledge in terms of measurement and uncertainty associated to your measurement, which will be better and better when you are closer to the top of this triangle. Finally, in some cases, you know, you may see a distinction between the different facilities or calibration facilities by having some which are ISO 17025 and some other which are not. And obviously, you will do and select what you will. Back to our business now. First statement, and I put it in red here, it's what you measure in terms of production, you know, it's not necessarily what you get paid for. Okay, and you may be surprised with that, but in fact, it's because your quality of measurement may not be outstanding against fiscal measurement, for example, and then we will need to do a recalculation of what you are claiming against what was sold, and this is essentially the allocation process. And this can be done on the gas, can be done on the oil, and you could imagine also on the water. The allocation is becoming more and more important, you know, for multiple reasons, and I try to highlight it here in this slide. It could be because you have different partners, you have some tieback of production. Offshore nowadays is done very often, you know, it's cost effective. You may have some marginal field also that you want to tie back, or you may have some small operators and they don't want to develop a full solution, you know, with a platform and so on, and they try to tie back this production to another existing platform. Whatever the allocation system or in place, you will, if you are an oil company, you will enter in this allocation agreement with the other companies. This is fundamental. Let's move to the second point of this presentation, and what is the allocation process? I am starting with an example here. You can see on the right side a cartoon, you know, from North Sea, where I'm presenting a platform, the BP platform, and you can see there is 5 different partners on this one, and you have 2 fields which has been tied back, one to the other and to the main platform. And you can see that there is different partners here, different sharing between all of them, and this is really the reality that we see more and more today. What is allocation? The definition is quite simple. You know, it's a process of matching cumulative volumetric or mass production measurement, okay, at various places inside your system against a fiscal measurement that you have. And fiscal measurement means this is where you are selling this fluid, oil or gas, you know, or giving the ownership to someone else. So the process of allocation, it's something quite simple, maybe not intuitive at the beginning, but you will understand very quickly later why it goes this way. It goes from the best uncertainty measurement, okay, and you will propagate this uncertainty to the worst devices or systems that you have in your scheme of this development, okay. And very often, I will say all the time, the best uncertainty measurement that you have in your system, it is at the fiscal point. Fiscal point means at the time where your oil, or the commingled oil, is sold or transferred to someone else, and this someone else is paying some dollars, euros, or whatever the currency you want to use to pay you for what you have been producing. Okay. So it is obviously the last system in the allocation, okay? And you can start to see in your mind that the best allocation is at the end of your system, and therefore when you want to do the allocation, you will do it from the end of the system back to your main production platform. Said in a different way, the system of allocation, or the process of allocation, is a counter-flow process. So the flow is going from the well to the fiscal meter, when the allocation goes from the fiscal meter to the well. We work with the concept of tiering. Okay, so what's happening? We try to simplify or make blocks, different blocks that are linked to each other. So you can see here in blue, for example, a block which is called unit 1 plus 2 on the left side. You have the unit 3, and these two units, are commingled to a terminal, and this will be where you have your fiscal measurement. However, as you can imagine, the unit 1 plus 2 is receiving production from a unit 1 and a unit 2, and therefore you will have a second level of tiering here, represented in green in this case. So whatever is entering inside this dash square that I'm presenting in green, it is inflow, and the unit 1 plus 2 is the outflow from this square. And obviously the things becomes more complex, and this is a norm in this business. So you will have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on. And obviously you can imagine it's a bit like a generally 3. It will go not only on one leg, like I'm presenting here on the platform 1, for example, but it could be on the platform 2 and platform 3, and so on. We know now the allocation process and what is it. Let's get a bit around the theory on what are the different types of allocation that can be used, and we will try very briefly here during this 50 minutes plus that we have together, to see a bit the pros and cons of. There are 6 different types of allocation, which I'm listing here, and we will go step by step through them. Let's start with a simple one, and allocation by difference. Allocation by difference, this is probably one of the worst that you can imagine. What's happening here, if you start on the right side of my slide, you can see a platform 1, 2, and 3, and the 3 is in red. And you have the fiscal measurement, so a commingle of 3 production to a fiscal point, and there is no measurement in this case on this unit number 3. So however, you know that the total production should be the production of each of them. Okay. On the other side, you know the production from the fiscal point, and you should match both of them. And if you equalize, the 2 equations I'm presenting here, you can calculate what is produced from the unit number 3. So the unit number 3, the production will be the fiscal measurement minus the production of the 2 other units in this case. So as you can see, there is, as par definition, there is no information about the production of number 3. So the number 3 is getting what is necessary to match the fiscal measurement. What's happening in this case, if you start to look at the uncertainty associated with this unit 3, you will see that you need to cumulate the uncertainty associated with the fiscal measurement, which usually is quite small. Okay, probably we are in 0.2%. Okay, 0.25% in some cases, and the one coming from the unit 1 and the unit 2, which could be big, and in this case it will increase the uncertainty and the exposure, the financial exposure that you may have if you are the owner of the third platform. The next allocation system that I wish to discuss with you, it's about equity-based allocation. The equity-based allocation, sometimes known as apportionment allocation, it's a simple one that you can have in your mind. The fluid that you are producing is allocated based on the proportion of the share that each partner have in this system. Okay? It is very simple, as I said. It's very easy to understand, to implement, and to audit. But this system doesn't take into account, the quantity or the quality of the stream that are provided by each user if you are different partners. Let's review now the proportional based allocation, and this is much more common in our industry. How do you apply the proportional based allocation? It's quite simple in a way. You take the production from each platform, and this gives you the total volume of oil, for example, that you are expecting, and you look at this value against the fiscal measurement, and the fiscal measurement has a better uncertainty or higher quality, and very often you will have a difference between the total production claimed and what has been sold, which is a fiscal measurement. So there is an imbalance. You calculate this imbalance, and you will need to properly split this imbalance. How do we apply this imbalance? We will calculate a coefficient which will be proportional to the production. I call it here alpha 1. Alpha 1 is defined by the production coming from claim from the platform 1 against the production claim from the platform 1, 2, and 3. Having the imbalance value and this coefficient, we multiply together and we add it. Very often you subtract it, in fact, because the imbalance is negative, to the claim production. We have been calculating the alpha 1, we can calculate the alpha 2 and the alpha 3, and then we have been capable, to do a proper proportional base allocation. One of the worst things, in this allocation process, there is no incentive. We didn't talk about uncertainty. There is no incentive about the quality of the measurement, As soon as you claim a value, and if you claim a bit too high, it could be even beneficial in some cases. So yes, the advantage is it's easy to implement, and probably it's very intuitive for some people. But let's face it, there is two main disadvantages. One that I mentioned just before, it's you are not looking if your measurement is good or not. You claim a number and that's it. And definitely this method should be discontinued in a near future, because there is no rewardings, if you have a good or low uncertainty in your system. We are coming now to probably the most important allocation system, which is the uncertainty-based allocation. And this one is really what you should be applying today in the 21st century, And what you can understand immediately, it's the fact that we talk about uncertainty-based allocation. We will be using the uncertainty associated with the measurement of each unit or flow meters. Okay, so this will give an incentive, to each unit to reduce as much as possible the uncertainty that they have in order to have a compensation or an allocation, which is a reallocation, which is as small as possible against what they are claiming in terms of production. This, for me, it's definitely a more equitable process in place. It means that if one company, is applying 100% what's said from a manufacturer, recalibrating the equipment on a yearly basis or better than that, then they should have an incentive. And the incentive here is that the correction that they will have on the measurement will be much smaller to someone that has a poor maintenance program, for example. Okay? And the regulatory body are looking more and more in this direction. The equation to put in place, are not very complex, and I'm presenting the equation here on the right side. You need to know the uncertainty within a confidence level, and the confidence level is 95%. This is what status that we are using worldwide here. And you will calculate the alpha factor, and you have the same concept to measure the imbalance as I said earlier, and you will apply this equation here. The sigma that you see here is a standard deviation, can be calculated in multiple ways. It's quite easy nowadays, even with an Excel spreadsheet you can do it for sure. And I highlighted here in this equation what is, few of the things in blue and some in black. And the idea here is if you look at carefully, and if you imagine that the standard deviation, on your production from field 1, 2, and 3 are 0, means you do not want to take care about that, you will see that the uncertainty-based allocation come to a production-based allocation. So in fact, say it in a different manner, the production-based allocation, it's a particular case of the uncertainty-based allocation if you are not using the uncertainty in your measurement. Okay, so said in a different manner, it's not a fundamentally difference between the production-based allocation and the uncertainty-based allocation. It's just a particular cases, and you should definitely use this uncertainty-based allocation as much as you can. Let's try to summarize, because these two allocation system is what you see very often in place today. The high uncertainty measurement that you have with a measurement will penalize you in this concept of uncertainty-based allocation, where nothing will happen if you're in proportional-based allocation. And again, you want to optimize your production, you want to be sure about your reservoir management, and definitely most of these companies today wants to have a good measurement from the production point of view, and therefore the uncertainty should be kept as small as possible. And the benefit is when we do the reallocation, this company will have not a big hit in terms of recalculation. Okay, you can say it in a different manner. If you have a poor uncertainty or poor accuracy, on your measurement, this make a big exposure from a financial point of view, and obviously it may cost you a fair amount of money. We have now a very interesting allocation method here, which is a value adjustment. I've seen it very seldom applied as such, but let's go very briefly through that. What is value allocation? Up to now, when we have been doing allocation, we have been looking, in terms of volume. It could have been in terms of mass. Okay, it could have been in terms of energy, but we didn't look at, the quality of the oil, for example, between the different partners. Imagine you have one partner producing a 40-degree API and the other one producing a 60-degree API, and you mix both of them. Obviously, what you are selling at the fiscal point is something which is in the middle of both, and the value of this oil is increased in one case and it is decreased in the other case. But you wish to get not only the volume correctly calculated, but you want to have the dollars associated to this production probably associated. And the value allocation is capable to do the dollar allocation directly by compensating the quality in a volume of your allocation. And this is quite interesting. The value adjustment is done now not anymore on the liquid, but on the dollar. So all the idea is after you have calculated the proper production for each platform, you look at the quality of the oil produced by each platform, and then you can evaluate what is the number of dollars that should be given to each platform. And then, having the quality of the oil from your fiscal measuring point, you are capable to calculate the production from a financial point of view here and rebalance it in terms of volumetric flow rate. Okay? Not seen very often, okay? But this is to avoid, sometimes the transfer of money that you need to do between different partners. The idea here is very simple. You want to ensure that each user is receiving an equitable shares of the commingled fluid which has been produced. Let's go to the final allocation method that we have here, which is the data reconciliation. What is data reconciliation? Up to now, we have seen the production-based allocation or the uncertainty-based allocation, but you may imagine that you want to go a bit further than that. You want to be able to understand, the quality of your equipment. Does it work properly? Is it out of calibration? You want to look at where your imbalance is the highest. Up to now, we have been looking, the extreme of the cases. And here's the data reconciliation. Again, it is a mathematical process. There is no way to explain you step by step the process. Why? Because we will use some statistical techniques here, and we will try to minimize the errors that we have in the entire network. It's not well accepted today by all the companies, this system, but I want to show you how powerful it can be. The best way to talk about the data reconciliation is to take an example, and I'm showing you one here. We have a flow meter on the left side, which is the inlet of our network, and we have the flow meter 14 on the right side, which is the outlet of our network. And you can see multiple flow meters in the middle. You have 12 of them in the middle, and you have different nodes. This is where you have the production, which is split. For example, M1 here is split between M2, M3, M4, and M4 is split on the node number 3 between M9 and M10, and so on. So we will be using, and keep in mind, this concept of node because it will be very important how to solve the mathematics here. You do the data reconciliation by stages. And the first one is obviously, as I described it just before, you need to define your system, okay? And look at the different nodes that you have. And when you have described properly this system, you need to establish all the equation for each node. And I'm presenting here on the right side the node 1 to node 8 and the inflow measurement that we had and how the flow meters are related to each other. This will be able, to describe. You will be able to describe these things inside a system, a matrix system, and then you will be able to do a minimization of that. The process of minimization is what I'm trying to show with a cartoon on the right side. So the idea is we know that we have an imbalance, and we have an imbalance at each node, as described earlier, and we will try to shift a bit the value for each flow meters and try to find the best optimum in terms of minimization. Okay? We want to minimize, at the end of the day, the sum of the error that we have, the square of the error, in fact, that we have. And what is very important, it's this new value x that we are generating mathematically is what we call the reconciliated value. Okay? And you can relate x to m by this variation v that I'm presenting here. So to give you an idea about the equation that I've been presenting before, I'm showing you for each node, which are representing in a circle, the small blue circle with a number inside, it's a node. So you have a node 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. you can see for each node what is the value of what is flowing in. For the node number 1, it will be 71.55, and what is coming out is 64.66. So obviously there is a mismatch here, there is an imbalance. I will need to take care about that. Node 2 is the same thing, and so on. And this is how you will go through this minimization. And if we look at what is coming out of the stage 3 or step 3 in our process, you see here that, for example, the flow meter 1 was claiming to produce 70 or to indicate 71.55, and through this minimization we see 68.51. If you look at immediately the M14 on the right side, you can see that it was mentioned here 70.88 would have been our physical measurement here, and now we say, I'm sorry, you know, it's not 70.88, it's 68.51. So you can see here how you can feel uncomfortable if you need to change your physical measurement. Usually this is very high quality and you don't want to do any change on this value. As I said, there is a way to avoid to change this number, but I wanted to show you in a broad manner how the minimization is acting, and it's acting in the same way on all the flow meters that you have in your system. So now when you are manipulating all these numbers and get this new data reconciliated, you want to check the quality of this reconciliation, you know, because if you change it by a lot, it means that somewhere the quality of this flow meter is not right. And obviously, if you don't change it a lot, it means in a way that the flow meter was producing or collecting right information at the beginning. And we use here what we call the accuracy index. Q value is a Q parameter is used very often. I show you how you can calculate the Q value. At the end, I want to tell you very briefly, the Q value is equivalent to the coverage factor. For some of you, if you know how we go from the standard uncertainty to the expanded uncertainty, we need to multiply by a K factor. For 95% confidence level, the K factor is 1.96, and the Q value will be representing such quality, you know. If you are way below 1.86, it means that you have a very good measurement or very good meter in place, and the minimization was small. At the opposite, if you have a big numbers, it means that there is a poor quality measurement from the associated meter. So let's look at in our case, again, if I calculate the accuracy index, I get a number, you know, which can be positive or negative, you know, and if this number is above 1.96, as I said, which represent normally 95% confidence level, I tag in red these flow meters, and if it was below the absolute value of 1.96, I put it in blue. Okay, and what we see immediately here, it's in this system where we have 14 flow meters, 6 of them have an issue. Okay? We have M1, M3, M4, M9, M10, and M14. What is very annoying here when I look at this system, it's the coming in, the inlet, the main inlet measurement and the outlet measurement, you know, are both wrong, you know, with a poor or high quality index. So it means that something needs to be poor quality index, a high value again, means that this meter should be checked. So we should check 6 meters here. But before you start to dismantle, you know, all these flow meters and you send them for recalibration, the first thing to do is to try to look at what are the most important ones in your system. Okay, so don't disconnect the 6 in one go and send them for calibration. Try to understand a bit what's happening here. And in our case, if we have M1 and M14 already with a high value of Q, you know, we should start to look at these 2 flow meters. And in this case here, if you send these 2 meters for recalibration, or you have a prover or you have a system around, you know, to do it, and you look at the quality, in this example here, we went from a claim of 71.55 from a measurement point of view to something around 68. Okay, so obviously they were not calibrated since a while. Redoing your minimization as soon as you have corrected this M1 and M14, you can see that now the only guilty flow meters in our system, it's only M3. So you see, you had 6 potential poor performance flow meters, but by targeting the right one initially, so M1 and M14 again here, you come to the fact that there is only one which should be looked at carefully, which is the M3. Okay, so you start to see the value that you have with the data reconciliation. It is, again, it's the way you handle your process. You know, it's not something that you can describe in depth. Mathematically, you can do it, but you cannot audit it in a proper way. But the system gives you much more than the other allocation system. Here you do really a reconciliation, and it helps you to debug and spot what should be corrected, or what are the actions that you should take in your network. Obviously, if you have a small network, you know, probably there's no point to use this system. However, when you start to have a very complex system in place, I will strongly recommend to use, if it's possible, the data reconciliation. As I said earlier, allocation is an agreement between the different partners, and very often you will have a UBA in place or a PBA. Very often people are in PBA, and we try to move them from production-based allocation to uncertainty-based allocation. Unfortunately, the data reconciliation is not used a lot today. Okay, but the value is really this system self-check that you obviously you see the benefit of this data reconciliation system. You will save fair amount of OPEX, because the system will spot you where you should go, and by fixing 1 or 2 flow meters, you know, you can rerun your minimization and spot what are the next one to look at in your network, you know, and this is very, very important. It helps you also if you do this data reconciliation versus time, to look at which meter are drifting, you know, or potentially some leaks that could come to your system, because you will see the Q value, you know, changing for one of these flow meters, and if the Q value is increasing, it means either, you know, leak, for example, or this meter is failing, erosion, whatever it is, you know, you need to take a maintenance program in place. We have seen all the theory around that, and now I want, in this time that we have, some real cases. Okay. The first example, and we have only 2. The first example will show you that nothing is very simple, you know, and you don't do the full allocation with the PBA or the UBA. You will mix some of them, and it will show you also that sometimes you cannot use the data reconciliation if you are not capable to have a proper equation to solve your problem. So if you see my pointer here, we have a first field which is producing here. We have a second one, which is, I call it A, you know, which is a platform, and another one B, and then in this gray box here, it's a new field that will be tied back to this previous network. Okay, so the first thing that you do, again, if you are in this allocation, will be to spot the key flow meters that will be used in your allocation. And here we can spot very quickly that for this production on the top, it will be a Coriolis meter. For the commingle production from A, B, and the new field, you will have an ultrasonic. You will have an FPSO to collect the fluid from each side, so you will be able to do measurement, you know, and then you will have the typical system, you know, for the custody transfer, which is based on turbines measurement, you know, with a prover to verify that these turbines are well within the 0.25%, which is a classical value that you have. Okay, so and to finalize. This field, and this is why I took it, you know, it's quite interesting. They want to use a multi-phase flow meter as an allocation meter for the production coming from this field here. Partners are different here, and there, and here. Okay, So there will be some correction to be done for each of them. So we define the tier 1 in this case, and the tier 1 will be between the physical measurement point of view, which is a turbine here, and the FPSO. So you are capable to do a tiering here, and obviously the best one will be the uncertainty-based allocation. The tier 2 will be the production coming from the Coriolis here, or recorded by the Coriolis, and by the ultrasonic against the flow going to your storage, FPSO in this case. Okay, and you could use two systems here, the proportional based allocation, but definitely I will recommend to use the uncertainty based allocation. It will create an incentive for this field here and for the FPSO here to keep the equipment at the highest level in terms of performance, or the best level if you prefer. The tier 3, it's quite interesting, you know, and it's taking into account obviously the ultrasonic, liquid ultrasonic flow meters, you know, which is on the output, and you will look at this value against the proposed multi-phase flow meter that you have and the production coming from the field A and B. And as you can see it here, there is no flow meters installed on the A and B, so there is no monitoring done here. So definitely you will use, in this case, in this tier 3, the allocation by difference. You will have a measurement coming from the multi-phase flow meter, you will have a measurement on the out from the liquid ultrasonic flow meters, and then you will do the difference to calculate what has been produced by A and B. Now, A and B, because there is no monitoring here, you will split the production based on an equity system or allocation here in this case. So you can see that we have, in this case, 4 tiers in place, but each of them use different techniques. Okay, and in this case, you can see. I want now to switch to a different one. Much more school case here. We have 3 units, 1, 2, and 3 again, and we have a physical measurement. And I'm giving you some information here about the quality of oil coming from the unit 1, the unit 2, and unit 3. And all the idea here is to look at what will be the reallocated value for this field against the initial value if we use PBA, the UBA, or the value adjustment in this case. So I just show you a case, for example, with the UBA. You know the uncertainty associated with the unit 1, which is 0.8% in this case, is not bad at all. Unit 2 is slightly higher, 1.6, and the unit 3 is plus minus 0.8%. You can see that the quality of oil, it's a bit poorer for the unit 1. We put, I use 40 degree API here in this case, 45 for the unit 2 and 50 for the unit 3. So obviously the highest quality of oil is coming from this unit 3, but when you blend the production coming from each of them, you come to a different value at the physical point, and you need to measure this quality, and you need to reallocate the value in a proper manner. So this is done here. In this case, I decided to make it simple, to look at the dollar, $1, you can 1 degree API. It's definitely not working that way, but it was to make it very simple for you. So what you do is you look at what will be the value of the oil at the node. Here we have only one node, so at the node here, the value of the API will be 46.8, value of the oil, sorry, will be 46.8 degree API, okay? And then we will reallocate it to each unit, knowing that they have a different quality of oil, so therefore sometimes we'll increase a bit the value for one of them or decrease for the other one. And I'm giving you an example, for example, how you calculate the value in dollars, so for the first one, we are using UBA, so we know the production, we know the value of the oil, and therefore we know that this company should receive $29,000, And therefore, knowing the quality of oil that they have, we will be able to calculate the volume of oil we will allocate to them. So let's summarize everything. Here we have what is reported by each partners, different units, you know, and you can see the equity-based allocation. So I've been imagining, you know, they all own these three units, you know, and 20%, 55, 25%. This is how you will be doing the equity-based allocation, okay? And if you use it by difference, assuming, for example, that the M3 has no multi-phase formator, okay, this is how you will be claiming the production from each of them. So obviously, as you can see here, see clearly, it's the claim production from the partner 1 is what they will get. The claim from the partner 2 is what they get here, and the partner 3 get the imbalance, and then the value is slightly smaller in this case. These are definitely the worst way to handle allocation. The most common one, you know, if I can say, it's a proportional-based allocation, an uncertainty-based allocation. I use the equations that I presented to you before, and you can see it's the partner 1, or the unit 1, was claiming 634, and in one case it's 621 and 633 in this case, following the allocation system that you use. And you can see exactly the same thing for the other one. Okay, remember, for the UBA, I give you here the uncertainty for each partner, and obviously you can see that the partner 2 get a bit more hit on his production than the other one, because his uncertainty is higher, twice the other one, and therefore his value in terms of correction is much lower than the other one. And finally, you can use the data reconciliation, so you can minimize here your uncertainty, and you will see that the value are very, very similar to the one with the uncertainty-based allocation. Okay, they converge. As I said, the uncertainty-based allocation, it's a specific case of the data reconciliation, so you get the same value here. And if you look at it purely, you know, from a value adjustment allocation, from the quality of oil, you can see that the value that they should have in terms of volume of oil sold, you know, it's only 540 for this one, 1,756 for this one, and 2,509 for this one. You may understand why this one is getting much more today. It's because he has an API of 50 degrees, okay, where the mix of all of them, you know, was slightly below 47 degree API. So therefore, you need to boost its production in volume against the other one. And this is how works the value adjustment allocation. We are now reaching our conclusion. Allocation, you know, I have been presenting here allocation in volume, but it could be done in mass, and it should be done, I will say, in energy, especially when you are starting to deal with gas. You know, in this case, it's the value created, you know, in terms of energy that is necessary. Okay, so keep this in mind. I try to simplify as much as possible this presentation in a given time we had. Keep in mind, you know, when you are tying back a field to existing allocation system, it may change fundamentally the way you want to handle it. In some cases, you may be using PBA or UBA allocation, but as soon as you have this tieback, you will probably need to go with a UBA. Okay. Following who you are in this process, you know, sometimes you may want to look at what will be the benefit, you know, the gain or the loss, you know, to improve your allocation system. It's funny, but sometimes by trying to move from PBA to UBA, you may be hit in a different manner between the different partners, following the quality of equipment that they have. Okay, so remember. And this is very often the case, in a practical manner, you will not use only one technique of allocation, you may be forced to use different techniques because, for example, some measures are missing, and therefore you will need to use the techniques by difference, allocation by difference, which is worse that you could imagine, but you need to do the allocation, and this is a way. This can be also a motivation for this company, to have a flow meter in the future. I strongly recommend, to use uncertainty-based allocation, and the three main that you will see, it's UBA, PBA, and by difference. Okay. My last slide to conclude here, it's what I said earlier. Remember, measurement is fundamental. If you don't do a proper measurement, if you don't have a proper uncertainty to your measurement, you are not capable to do anything. Said in a different manner, and this is what I'm presenting here in red, if you do not measure properly, you do not control your production, and you depend in terms of measurement or quality of your measurement or production from the other companies. And this is the perfect case. It's allocation by difference. Final one, it's when you have a tieback, new partners coming to your system, you need to re-enter, or you need to enter into a new allocation agreement between the different companies. This is something that you need to start as early as possible, even before you have this platform or all these things in place, is to start to look at what is your system. Okay, how do you do your allocation right now, and how will you be able to do it in the future? And this obviously will be audited by each partner. Before concluding this webinar, I wish to tell you, if you want to learn a bit more about flow measurement, we are proposing a full training which address the flow calculation, the fundamentals of the flow measurement, the custody transfer, the hydrocarbon allocation, gas or oil, and the introduction to the uncertainty. This 5 days training, have been revamped lately in digital format, and we go for 10 half days in a simple format, if I can say that, if you don't want to go for the advanced level. And we will have this opportunity to run again this training in August for the Pacific, Asia, Middle East side. I'm saying that because it will be run from Malaysia. So you can adjust your timing versus this one. So I guess we reach the end of our presentation. Keep in mind that during this 55 minutes plus that we have together, I presented really the tip of the iceberg. We have been going quite fast in some of the way to do the allocation. You may want to go a bit deeper in some of these cases, or you may want to have some support, and feel free to contact me in this case. Thank you again, and I leave you now to your normal activities, if I can say that. Bye bye.